My name is Nada. I am the entrance to the Red River Gorge. I have many stories to share with you. Stories of miracles and, sadly, some will be stories of death. Come with me. I will share them. Millions of years ago, the Red River began cutting rock formations through my vast forests. It is still creating as we speak. There are now... excuse me, could I say something here?
What?
I just wanted to do my intro. Welcome to another episode of This Happened Here. On this channel, I take you around the US and to any other country I feel has amazing stories to share with you. Today, we will travel through the Red River Gorge in Kentucky, USA. I will share with you some of the stories that have happened there. Up in the car, and let's go.
Leave now and never come back.
Actually, please allow me to tell these stories. This is my channel. There are now 150 arches inside the Red River Gorge in east central Kentucky. It is millions of years old with over 42,000 geological acres reaching into parts of Menifee, Powell, and Wolfe counties. It is made up of many high sandstone cliffs. Some are going up 200 feet. In the Red River Gorge, you will find shelters formed by rocks, waterfalls, rivers, and many nature-made bridges. People around the world visit this world-famous place to climb, hike, and camp. We drove through the Nada Tunnel, which you saw at the beginning of this video, which is one of the gateways to the Red River Gorge. It is 900 feet long and 12 feet wide. The tunnel was built between the years 1910 and 1912. During the tunnel building, one of the workers left a stick of frozen dynamite to thaw too close to the fire. It ignited, exploded, killing him on the spot. It was a sad day for everyone. But the gorge has seen many painful days, and I will share a few with you. The U.S. Forest Service manages the Red River Gorge and does not track search and rescue because this is left up to the team of volunteers in the area. It does not even track criminal citations or death regularly. However, 73 deaths were recorded between 1960 and 2005, and 15 people died in the gorge from 2013 to 2015, including 4 falls, 2 drownings, 2 vehicle accidents, 2 suicides, and 2 medical conditions. But there are many more that have not been documented because the state of Kentucky does not keep a record of the names and addresses of those injured there, and some may not have even reported their accidents. Sadly, 90% of the injuries or deaths reported are people from Ohio and Kentucky. Most of these deaths and accidents are people who have been heavily intoxicated, ignored the warning signs, climbed over the barriers, and fell, resulting always in severe injuries and sometimes fatalities. Before I tell the stories of some of these accidents, I want to highlight that one of the most talked about natural disasters in the U.S. has happened there. It was the Great Flood of Clay City. It happened in the year 1962. The river rose over 25 feet, flooding Clay City. More than 80 people had to be rescued from their homes. It took some time for the water to recede, but not before creating a lot of damages. Now onto these stories. And I want to say that my heart goes out to the loved ones of these people, and I hope my telling these stories prompts you, my listeners, to be careful when you're out in nature, and please think about what you're doing before doing it. Nature is beautiful, but it can be deadly. Now, like every story I bring to you on this channel, they are 100% true, but I will add my imaginings to them because I try to get into the minds of these people. Here are the true stories of incidents that happened at the Red River Gorge. It was a dark night in April. I can't say for sure why we decided to go into the Red River Gorge, but 3 of my buddies and I decided to walk there. We were not prepared for what was about to happen. Armed with only the light from our cell phones, we walked into the dark woods. It was fun at first, as we laughed and had a good time, each one trying to best scare the rest of us. Suddenly I heard the screams of my friends. Their cries were moving away from me. It sounded as if they were falling over a cliff. Before I knew what was happening, I too was falling. Instinctively, I reached out, grabbed to hold something, anything, reaching up to the place I just fell from. My fingers found and wrapped themselves around the small root of a tree. With everything I had, I pulled myself up. I was breathless, scared and confused. I called out to them in the dark, not knowing where they were, but all I got back were sounds of agony. Something in me took over then, and I ran back the way we came, hoping not to fall over any other unforeseen cliffs. I needed to save my friends. I needed to get help. I finally got through, and soon Mark Ryan, one of the wilderness's first responders from the Wolfe County Search and Rescue Team, came, and with his bright headlamp, I could finally see my friends. They were 60 feet below me, still screaming in pain and agony. Flora, the female in our group, was on her back and her feet were sticking up. We found out later that she had broken her pelvis, a forearm, her elbow, cracked her hip, and broken her back in 4 places. Close by was one of my other friends. He was face down with his feet in the river, and nearby was the other. He was screaming in agony. I hardly recognized his voice anymore. I fell to my knees. I could not believe what was happening. 1 minute we were having fun, and the next, this. After my friends and I were rescued, I had to give thanks for having been saved to help them. I am so grateful that we are alive. Nurse Jackie set up camp and finally sat down to eat. She glanced around at the beauty that is Red River Gorge. She ate slowly, enjoying her time, the food, and her husband's company. Having finished eating, she set aside the empty container. She and her husband James had decided to stay overnight at the base of Chimney Top Rock. They chatted as they took in the beautiful sights of the gorge. Off in the distance they could hear the birds and the rustle of the wood creatures, and all was well with the world, until it wasn't. Jackie had just gotten up from her camping chair to clean the dishes when she heard a loud thud a few feet from where she was. Something big had hit the ground, but she couldn't make out what it was at first. It had landed behind the bushes. She looked at her husband with frightened eyes and saw that he too was looking at her with the same emotion, both dreading what that was. They slowly at first walked towards where the sound had come from and saw that it was a man lying on the ground. She raced over to him, thinking she could help him, but there was no doubt he was already dead. There was nothing Jackie or anyone could do for him now. He had been hiking above them and had slipped and fallen to his death. 7-year-old Bobby and 5-year-old James went hiking with their parents on a bright and sunny day at the Red River Gorge. They were all having fun, walking, talking, and playing around. Soon their parents grew tired and needed to stop and rest. James and Bobby still had too much energy to sit around, so they decided to explore while their parents rested. They wandered in the woods, hoping to stay near, but one thing after another grabbed their interest, and soon they could no longer see their parents. The sky grew dark, and they could no longer see where they were going. They were truly and utterly lost in the woods. They had cried out for their parents repeatedly, but no one came. They were now desperate and tired, so they found an alcove to sit and rest. They had been wandering around for 20 hours, when finally they heard people shouting their names. Though tired and hungry, they summoned enough energy to call back, and soon they were being hugged by their parents. The boys were saved, and just in time too, because a bad storm was coming. It was going to be so bad, it might have ended their lives. Archer looked at his equipment and a light bulb went off in his brain. He knew exactly where to take his new equipment to test it out. He would take it to the Red River Gorge. He was so focused on getting everything ready that he didn't check the weather. He packed an overnight camping bag, gathered all his equipment in another case, and opened the door. A cold gust of air hit his face as soon as he stepped outside. Is it going to stay this cold? He wondered. He looked down at everything he had packed and decided, hey, I already have everything ready to go. I'm just going to go. I'm only going to spend one night. I can do it. So he locked his house door and loaded up his car. But on his way there, he kept thinking that he should turn the car around. But he kept pushing it aside and reminding himself that he was only going to stay one night and that he really wanted to check his new equipment out. He finally reached the area, parked his car, and got out. It felt even colder here, but he kept thinking, just one night, just one night. He hiked to the camping spot and set up camp, but it was so cold he felt as if he were going to freeze his fingers and toes off. Even though he had a fire, he just could not get warm. He knew he had to abandon his plans, so he packed up his gear and started back towards his car. On his way back, he had to descend now the tricky vertical rock trail known as Indian Staircase. While descending, his foot slipped on black ice that had formed on one spot on the rock. He felt his foot slip. It happened so fast, in an instant he was plummeting to the bottom of the trail, hitting the ground so hard it knocked his breath from his body. He struggled to gasp in the cold air and tried to move. Excruciating pain shot up his leg. Looking down, he realized his leg was severely broken. He was not going anywhere, but if he stayed, he knew he was going to die there. Somehow he got a hold of John May from the search and rescue squad, and before long John was by his side, prepping him for the painful walk back to safety. John remembered it was so cold that his water bottle had frozen solid on his hike to Archer, but he was happy he got there in time to save Archer's life, because if he hadn't, Archer would have been frozen to death. 18-year-old Brandy loved camping and just being in nature, especially here at Red River Gorge. That was why she set up her camp 10 feet from the edge. She needed to get that unobstructed view. The air in the gorge was cool on that day of November 7th, and she felt at peace. She completed the setup and sat for a while, taking in the beauty of her surroundings. She couldn't get enough of it. So she got up from her seated position to see what lay just below and beyond the cliff. Suddenly she felt the earth give and she was falling. Brandy fell 70 feet, hitting the ground hard, knocking her unconscious. Luckily, someone saw her when she fell, and soon she was rescued. Later she found that not only did she have a nasty concussion, but she had broken her arm and leg. She counted herself lucky though, because just a few days before her fall, 2 other 18-year-old hikers, a male and a female, had not survived when they fell. Their fall resulted when their climbing equipment failed, sending them to their death. Anne and Stephen took baby Dave on a hike to the Red River Gorge. They were nature lovers and wanted their 4-year-old son to participate in something that meant a lot to them. They had hiked a while and were getting closer to Princess Arch when suddenly baby Dave slipped away from them, falling off the cliff. He was out of reach before Stephen could reach him, and in horror and fear, Anne and Stephen watched as Dave fell, hitting multiple ledges 30 feet down to finally land 70 feet at the bottom. Fear might have immobilized other men, but Stephen's love for his son had him climbing down the mountain towards Dave. He cared not for his own life. He needed to get to his baby boy, hoping and praying he would find him alive. He saw the drop. He was going down the very cliff, so in the back of his mind, he knew his son might not have made it. But he pushed that thought aside and continued his climb down. Stephen's heart soared when he finally saw him and saw that he was alive. And he excitedly shouted up to Anne, who was anxiously waiting to hear something, anything. Soon he had baby Dave in his arms. He secured him to his own body and looked up. The way up was going to be more difficult, so he decided to continue his climb down instead. With relief, he finally reached the bottom and crossed the Red River and the Sheltowee Trace suspension bridge to safety. When Anne reached her family, she grabbed them in her arms and held them tight. They were alive. They are alive, she kept repeating to herself, and it would be many hours later before she could let them go. Though 4-year-old Dave lived, many did not. Like the University of Kentucky medical student who went hiking alone and fell from Oxear Ridge, dying instantly, and the woman who went hiking to break in her new boots, and they found her at the bottom of a 150-foot cliff. Visitors to the Red River Gorge must stay beyond the barriers and be careful. Read and follow all the warning signs, and do not drink and hike, please. Now that I have said that, and I've told these stories, I want to say that though there are many tragedies at the Red River Gorge, it is still a beautiful place to visit. We did, and we are still here. It has breathtaking views, and there are many things to do there, like taking the Creation Falls waterfall, kayaking in the cave at the gorge underground, and paddleboarding through the abandoned limestone mine, or even staying at the Red River Gorge's wilderness cabin rentals. All in all, it was a fantastic trip. Sorry if these stories were too upsetting for you, but if you happen to go there, please be careful. So now, if you find any part of this video interesting, please give it a like, and if you want to come with me on the next trip, click the subscribe button and select all. Doing that guarantees you a seat in the car or in our RV if we take snow. And if you think of anyone else who might find this video interesting, share it. Also, comment if you have been to the Red River Gorge and tell me what you thought of it. Well, that's all for now. Remember to love yourself and others. Be good, and catch you on the next one. Love you. Bye.